Right, the food is sponsored by the Chiyaya family and by our family. Hatzlacha for everyone, and for a great Hatzlacha and Yeshua and Refuah Shalema from Michael Noach, Ben Katrina Leah. Hashem should give a speedy recovery. Tomorrow maybe. All right, Rabbi, we're going to start Shir. We have copies on the Teva, on the Bima, for those who didn't give me opinions. I'm going to show everyone the copy, give to you the copy. We're going to follow along on the inside. Okay. Rabbi, we're going to today unravel, I think, the first word, the first sentence, the first pasuk of our Parshat Beshalach. Avadi, bring me a chumash. Thank you. They put that over there. Thank you. I think this pasuk, we're going to see, how did we learn until now? I have no idea. It's amazing. Oh. Okay, so we're going to begin. Pasuk says, Vayhi Beshalach Paro et ha'am. And it happened, Vayhi, and it happened, Beshalach Paro, when Paro sends et ha'am, the nation, V'lo nacham Elohim derech eretz Pelishtim, and Hashem didn't lead them to the way where the Pelishtim, which would be the natural way to go up right into the Rafah crossing, and you get into Israel that way. Ki karovhu, because it's close. Ki amar, because he said, Elokim, Hashem said, Pen yinachem ha'am, they're going to have remorse, they're going to have second thoughts, and they're going to say, you know what, Birotam milchama, we're seeing a war, let's go back. B'shavu Mitzrayim. Rabbi, when I ask a question, this is the first question of the Zera Shimshon, and I think after just hearing this question, we're going to question ourselves how we learned and how we say the whole Az Yashir. What are we saying? Vayhi Beshalach Paro. Who sent the nation out? Paro or Hashem? Vayhi Beshalach Paro. We just started. Vayhi Beshalach Paro, and it happens when Paro sends the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim. Who sent them out? Hashem sent them out. You're saying Paro sent them out? Vayhi Beshalach Paro. That's question number one. And then he says, what's the rest of the pasuk? You know why he didn't tell them go north of Egypt? You'll get to the Rafah crossing. You'll be in Eretz Yisrael. We didn't take them that way because you know why? Ki karovhu, because it was close. That's the reason, because it was close. If it wasn't close, he would take them. What are you telling me with ki karov? And then the question gets even stronger. The next words of the pasuk is ki amar Elokim. He gave a second reason, because Hashem said maybe they're going to have remorse. How many reasons do you need? So the question is, who let them out? Who let the Jews out? Was it Hashem or Paro? Pasuk says, "Vayhi Beshalach Paro." How could it be that it's Paro? So this is the Zera Shimshon says. By the way, I have ve'od diktukim acharim. There are so many more questions on this first pasuk, but we're going to primarily focus on these three. Now, when we're going to understand what was really happening behind the scenes, we're going to fit not only this pasuk together, we're going to probably understand the entire story of the Exodus and how every single part of it fits. So the Zera Shimshon says, I don't understand, I got these three questions. And he answers, V'yesh lomar. V'yesh lomar. You could say, Lefish Yisrael tza'aku el Hashem sheyotzi'em miMitzrayim. You know what the Jews did? They started to cry out. Torah wrote this pasuk. The Torah writes that Hashem, that the Bnei Yisrael tza'aku, they cried out. Torah says they cried out. They first rested a little bit. They started to groan from their work. They tried to have that Shabbat rest, and then they cried out. What were they doing? Why were they crying out? As if that's an important part of the story. But Yizaku, they cried. The Gemara, the Zera Shimshon, he quotes, and he says, you know what was really going on? They said, listen, our work in Mitzrayim is so hard. It's so hard, you got to count it as if we've been working double the amount of time. So we're here for 1 day? No, count it as 2 days. We're here for 200 years? Count it as 400 years. They cried out. They were crying out because they wanted to tap in to the midah of chesed. Hashem's going to judge with the midah of chesed, with kindness. Kindness, the Gemara says, if it's on a balance, on a scale, will tip it in the favor of good. So they are deserving of this slavery, but the different Zera Shimshon quotes another Gemara that says that Paro, out of his own self, just added too much slavery. He made it much harder for them. So now there's a balancing going on here. And the scale became even between them needing this slavery and them being subjugated way too harshly. So Vayizaku, they cried, hey, can we get some chesed here? If they're going to go according to that chesed, which the pasuk seems to say, Hashem says in the next parak, in Parak Gimel, he says, Hinei za'akat b'nei Yisrael ba'a elai. It came to me. I hear them crying out. Nir esh hiskim l'svaratam. It's as if he agreed to them. He said, you're right. You've been working so hard over here. This 210 years is enough. It's as if you did your full. It's a question whether it's 430 or 400 years. And basically, he worked so hard. The Jewish people were subjugated to such harsh cruelty that Hashem listened and He accepted. That would be midat chesed. Comes along the midat hadin, the strict judgment, and makes a ta'ana. He complains to Hashem. He's mekatrik, and he says, "Listen, you can't just skip years. There's 400 or 430. That's another. We'll talk about it on Shabbat. So what if they're doing hard? Okay, you know what? They're working hard. Do something else, but you can't cut it out. If we pause it right now, they'll have to do this later." That's really the dialogue, the conversation going on here. If the pasuk said, "Vayhi Beshalach Hashem et ha'am," then it would sound like Hashem sent them out. That means automatically they were lifted from Galut. Automatically that means midat chesed. They cried, Hashem agreed, it's over, automatically they can walk away, they don't even need paro. So it would not say paro. Midat Hadin comes and says, excuse me, you still owe the days. Just because it's hard now, you still have to do 400. You got to do another couple of 100 years here. So the Torah writes, Vayhi Beshalach Paro et ha'am. The only loophole to get out of it and pause the Galut is if Paro says you're out. Then Galut is paused. We have a separate issue now. What do we do with the rest of the years? It's paused. They can come out. That's what the pasuk says. Ki karovhu, because they were close to the end of exile, but they didn't get the end of exile. They didn't get there yet. Ki karovhu. And now, if they're going to walk And they're going to see the Pelishtim. They're going to see what happened with the Yosef's grandkids that left early, and there were all bones there. They're going to say, oh my gosh, where are we going? Almost like in those cartoons. But that side where I came from, I know. I want to go back. I want to go back. That's the pasuk. That's what the first pasuk is saying. Vayhi Beshalach Paro. Paro sent them out. Yes. Paro was forced to say, you're free to go. Once he said, you're free to go, we activated the loophole. They can come out. But they're all afraid now. Kikarov, Hashem says, yes, you're very close to your end date. You're not there yet. And I don't want you to go through the Pelishtim side in case you see war, you're going to want to go back. Why are you going to go back? Because you saw miracles. You shouldn't be afraid of anything. No, because they knew something. They knew that there was still time. Why do they know there's still time? What's going on here? In fact, not only did they know that there was time, Paro knew there was time. Paro tells them, take a look, there's going to be Ra'ah neged penechem. Ra'ah, the Gemara says in Nedarim, Ra'ah refers to Gehenam. Avraham Avinu was asked, what are you going to choose? There's going to be a punishment for your children. Gehenam or Galut, Shibut Malchiot. You're going to be under other kingdoms. Avraham Avinu said, let them be under other kingdoms. They'll have a chance to get out. Paro says, you're leaving. Kikarov, you still got time. Where are you going? You're going to leave us. Either you're going to work for someone else, or you're going to die in the midbar with Gehenam. You're never going to fix your problem. Come back. Because the craziest thing, Paro gets up to chase them. You didn't get your 10 makot. You almost died. You let them go. Are you crazy? Why are you going back after them? Mm-hmm. The only reason he's going back is because he says, I know what's going to be with you guys. You're going to end up with Ra'ah neged penechem. Ra'ah Gehenam. How Gehenam? Abraham Avinu chose for you Galut. You're leaving early. By the way, there's 3 ways they were able to get out. One was harsh work. One was they were still establishing families. The more the head count, the less the years. And the third way is this way. Through Midat Hadin, you could come out. There's a loophole. Paro could say, go. But you still have to take care of the problem that there's still more Galut ahead. In fact, the Torah writes 4 Lashonot of Geulah, right? The 4 Lashonot of the Geulah. And you should just know that the 4 Lashonot of the Geulah refers to the Babylonian exile, the Persia/Media exile, the Greek exile, and the Rome exile. It was there. So why is Hashem telling us, what's he saying? He's telling Moshe Rabbeinu, listen, you could answer the people. Don't make that mistake. You came out of Galut. You came out. If you maintain that level, you're a pater from all the other Galuts. None of them will happen. So we'll see all this inside, and then we'll see the ending. So let's continue. Pasuk says, their ending of their slavery was going to be forced to be shut because of the shibut, their terrible cruelty. And they cried out to Hashem, hey, we want chesed. And when he heard it seems like that he listened. And if the ketz, then what do we say? Then you don't need Paro. So Paro shouldn't be in the pasuk.
Where does it say that if they would have maintained the level, they would have not needed any?
Right at the end.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'll tell you. So basically, if they didn't do the Egel Hazahav, if they did not do the Egel Hazahav, then there would be no more Galut. It would have been done, complete. They didn't notice. The entire time they're jumping. And if we're going to go and look in the rest of the Pesukim, you're going to now see how everything fits in. When the Pasuk says, when Hashem tells to Moshe and Aaron, I'm commanding you, take out the Jewish people from Eretz Mitzrayim. Why is he commanding them? What's going on? Because they were fearful from leaving, because they said, you were taking us out early. We're going to go into a worse place. At least here, we know what we're going to get. When they complained and said, we remember what we ate and how it was in Mitzrayim, because they were fearful of going into another galut.
I was thinking about the Maccabees.
So I wouldn't say that they were so oblivious to everything. Lo yadat Yosef, even that. What does Rashi write there? He either remembered or didn't remember the Hashem's name, how he represented. They knew. They fought. They knew what was going on. They said, listen, you're going to go to Gehenna out there. He knew what he was saying here. Re'u ki ra'a neged penechem. He knew the story of Abraham Avinu. When the Jewish people saw Mitzrayim chasing them, what did they tell Moshe Rabbeinu? Halo zeh hadavar. This is what we told you. Asher dibarnu el elecha be'eretz Mitzrayim. That it's better for us to die in Mitzrayim than to die in the desert. Really? You were freed and you're saying it's worth dying in Egypt than in the desert? Yes. Because you'll be in Egypt, you'll be able to do the tikkunim that you have to do. Versus dying in the desert and you have to start over again. What were the tikkunim that you had to do? So I was researching the resources that Zera Shimshon used. There was a Mekubal in Krakow in the year 1603. He wrote a sefer called Megalle Amukot. So I sent to Natan something else from Parshat Vayetchanan that we talked about for the last 6 weeks, arguing back and forth. We found a source now to a lot of it. Different than what we thought, but now we have a source. The Megalle Amukot, I printed it out. I also revealed where the ArtScroll app keeps linking all the Svarim, and I'm like, wow, it's one app with everything in it. I decided to say send broken link, and then it shows everything's coming out of Sefaria. The ArtScroll is quoting right out of Sefaria. So I went to Sefaria and I printed it out. Now, I'm not saying I got 100% of this, but we'll go through a little bit just to tell you a little bit. And you'll see in Derush Dalid, and if you're going to read through, and if you're really going to look through the Zera Shimshon from Parshat Shemot, the era Bo Beshalach, you go through them. Whatever I'm holding in my hand now, this and this is probably his source material. This is unbelievable stuff. And the Zera Shimshon did a great job explaining a lot of it, because otherwise you'd be lost here. And he goes and he says, it's known that when Adam Harishon was Mekalkel, when he did his own cheshbonot and said, you know what, I'm not going to be married, I'll be sellable for 130 years, and he did averot during that time. This kilkul was mekalkel 4 generations. 4 letters of Shem Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Which 4 generations? Dor Enosh, everyone's doing Avodah Zarah at that time. Dor Mabul, the whole place got turned over with water. Now you're going to see Mitzrayim water. Moshe Rabbeinu is connected Dor HaMabul because he's found from the water. Each one of these Dor HaFlaga, where they tried to build a city and build a tower and go against, and Dor Sedom. In Kabbalah, Dor HaFlaga, generation number 3, tried to fight Hashem, didn't work. They all came back. They actually came back in Sedom. And they went for round 2. It didn't work either. It was all turned upside down. They came back into the Neshamot in Egypt. So now you have to understand what's going on here. This is unbelievable things here. The four Lashonot of Geulah corresponds to this as well. And then there are 4 special words that make the word Amsa, Aleph, Mem, Samech, and Hey, and that's Enosh, Mabul, Sedom, Haflaga, And it goes throughout the Chumash. You're going to find it in Parshiot where these words, Rashi Tevot, come out to those letters. Vayet Hanan is one of them. Vayet Hanan, the Megalle Amukot, he has on every parsha maybe 5 essays. When it comes to Parshat Vayet Hanan, it's 30 to 250 something essays. Okay, and this is one of the last one. This is the last one. To Reish Nun Bet 252. This one. This one he then ties it all in. Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben Yosef, how Moshe Rabbeinu tried to fuse the both of them, but we know one can't be when the other is. How that all worked out. As is Shabbat. We're gonna Shabbat. You print yours out to Shabbat. Not tonight, but Shabbat. Shabbat. We're gonna do the Shabbat. But let me just finish up over here. We have to get to Arvit in 4 or 5 minutes. So he says like this: Hen. These are the 4 Dalet Shelivot, the steps of the ladder. Shera'a Yaakov b'mar'eh hasulam. And where do you know that from? Hine sulam mutzav arza. Hey, samach mem alf. So Abraham, who begins this galut, because according to some of the calculations, it's 430. There's a few years difference of 400 to 430 years. So they bring in Yaakov's calculation by Lavan and the whole thing, and they come out there how it should be 430. Yaakov goes and sees this ladder. He sees his mission. The tikkun needs to be done with these 4 dorot that went wayward, and we have to fix them. The Elu hadalit hadorot nidgal gilul Mitzrayim, and these 4 generations all went gilgul into Mitzrayim. K'moshe katuv b'sefer HaPardes. B'shar Sha'arim, that David, he said, I'm sorry, we'll get to David in a minute, that Dor HaMabul, Itmar, Kol HaBen HaYot, the Dor HaMabul, every kid that's born, throw him into the river, that's connected that. And Anshe Sodom Metu, the Anshe Sodom that died, that was by Makat Choshech, and the 3 days of that massive darkness where they buried people. And then the Dor HaFlaga, what were they doing? They were building, right? So those people had to go find those bricks on their own. The Koshesh Kash, to go find the straw and make the mortar and then make the bricks out of that. Those were those guys. All this was being shown to Avraham Avinu by the Brit Ben Abetarim. This was part of that vision that he had. And we're going to have to take a stop over here, but I just want to tell you, I'll put up in the shul chat, I'll share. Can we save this? I'll find it, I'll make a PDF out of this. I'll send it out. This is very interesting. And this one, I'll send it out, and then Shabbat, those who are here, and if not, we'll try to figure it out. But this is crazy stuff. This is the source sheets, I think, from where the Zera Shimshon picks it up, and he just quotes one line. But if you go through how he explains the Parshiot, you go through the tapestry, you'll see that he's following through. So now we understand that going through Egypt, turning into a nation, to become a nation, to become the light on the world, you have to go through an experience. And the experience that we went through earned us the title to be the light on the nation. Took care of Gilgulim, took all that shibud. We were aliens in other, we were not strangers in the land. Not an easy life. And we did all that, turned into a nation, receiving the Torah. And the end of Zera Shimshon says, if they knew and were able to maintain, remember, these people achieved to get out of Egypt. This is not an easy thing. No one leaves Egypt. If they just maintained whatever level they got up to, there would be no other galut. They would have been complete. That's what their promise was. When Moshe tells them, at the end, Moshe tells them, Hityatzivu ur'u Yeshuat Hashem. Stand, and you're going to see the salvation of God. He's telling them, Bnei Israel, this is the Gemara in Eruvin, if you don't fall, you stay on this level, just stay there. That's all you have to do. So now you see a little inkling into what's called premature redemption. If we came out too early, even if we come out too early, there still will have to be, the Midat Hadin is going to come after you and say, no, you still need to get those years in.
That's if you fall.
If you fall. If you fall. So the most we need to, the least we need to do is maintain. Rabbi, thank you all for listening. The learning should be for Ashlema, for Rabbi Chaim Noach, and Claudia, Katharina Leah. Okay. Rabbi, Sunday.